It is a sad but true fact of American political life that not all scandals are created equal. Some scandals get the benefit of a really awesome name, an awesome name like Watergate. Watergate, man, that was a scandal, right? It had a great name. It had a sitting U.S. president. There were burglars, a break-in, hush money, wiretaps. As far as scandals go, Watergate pretty much had it all. It was such a good scandal, actually, that we now append the word gate onto just about anything bad that happens. Like that time a pen exploded in my pocket, getting ink all over my pants. Pantsgate. All scandals should be so lucky, but they are not. And sometimes it is the scandals with the really boring names that are the most important. Which brings us to Libor. A genuine scandal, a scandal, a big deal, really bad behavior by really powerful people with real effect on not just the world, but perhaps even on you, but also a really dull name. So you've heard of Libor, right? It's a scandal that you skip past when you see it in the news because you're not interested in going to bed at that very moment. But Libor is important, and it's actually kind of interesting. Once I explain to you what this thing was and how it worked, you're going to be kind of shocked we ever permitted the financial system to function in this way. So on tonight's edition of the Ezra Klein Challenge, I'm going to try to explain to you in 3 minutes or less why you should care about Libor. In fact, what Libor is, even though it's been cursed with about the worst name in the history of scandals. Now, I know what you're thinking here. Isn't the challenge usually 2 minutes? It is. But I begged for 3 minutes tonight because, look, the thing's called Libor. All right. Do we have the clock? We do have the clock. All right. Ready, set, go. Okay, what is Libor? It is the London Interbank Offered Rate, the London Interbank Offered Rate. And even though that sounds really complicated, it's actually super simple. It is pretty much the rate that banks in London charge each other to borrow money. Now, banks are pretty safe. The thing about them, almost the defining feature of them, is they have a lot of money, so they can pay you back. So when they're paying high rates to lend to one another, or charging high rates to lend to one another, it's really bad. It means things have gone so nuts in the financial system that even banks aren't a safe bet to pay back anymore. If the Libor rate, though, isn't really low, as it normally is, it means everything is fine, situation normal. Banks are confident about getting their money back from one another, as they should be. The rate that banks charge each other in London doesn't sound like it has anything to do with you. But it actually has everything to do with you. Every day when banks here in the U.S. are deciding how much money they're going to charge you for, say, a mortgage, they use Libor as like the floor on that rate. They say to themselves, okay, Libor is the going rate for a loan with pretty much no risk. So that's where they begin. And then they add your risk on top of Libor. They build your rate on top of Libor. So if Libor is really high, you're going to end up paying more for your mortgage than you would if it was low. That's why the scandal that's still breaking is important. If banks were intentionally manipulating Libor, then the rate being charged for mortgages here in the U.S. wasn't what it should have been. And whether it was too high and you were getting ripped off, or it was too low and the financial system was riskier than people realized, it's bad. But there is also a second reason you should care about this. You might recall this whole period during the financial crisis when regulators were trying to figure out if these banks were strong enough to survive. And one of the things they were looking at to figure that out was Libor. If Libor got too high, it meant the system was on the brink and regulators had to jump in. What the banks were allegedly doing back then was manipulating the Libor rate, possibly with the cooperation of certain regulators, to make it often lower than it should have been. Now, why would they do that? So they wouldn't get regulated as hard. If the banking system is in trouble, it needs to be more heavily regulated, maybe even nationalized. So the solution is lie to the regulators, make them think you're more stable than you are. Now, here's, though, the crazy thing about Libor. It was totally up to the banks. We just trusted whatever they said, and they were lying. And it seems that a lot of them were lying, that it was an open secret among them that you just lied about Libor. And so Libor is, in the end, a reminder of something that, by this point, we should really already know. You cannot trust the banks. You cannot trust self-regulation. It isn't going to work. All right. I have 20 seconds left. So not too bad. So under 3 minutes for Libor. Now, the next time you see Libor in the news, you don't have to fall asleep on the spot. Libor, it is about what you were paying, how safe we thought the banking system was, and the upshot is don't trust these guys. Also, you're going to be the life of your next cocktail party. I promise.